1. One argument for God's existence. 2. Two arguments for God's existence. 3. Three arguments for God's existence.
I try to avoid long technical words when I'm doing this, but seeing as cumulative is what the pros say, I thought I'd better at least open with it. What I'm going to do today is look at a few of the reasons to believe in God, but explain how they make a cumulative case. Something that happens quite a lot when you explain one of these reasons, say the cosmological argument. The person you're talking to will point out that the argument doesn't prove Christianity, so it's not useful. The thing is, I, and others like me, are fully aware that the cosmological argument alone does not prove Christianity, but it does provide proof, or at least powerful evidence, for a transcendent creator. And a lot of the reasons to believe in God are similar. They make a piece of the puzzle. Look at this jigsaw here. Each piece alone isn't a full picture, but you can't have a full picture if you don't have every piece. So if we only had one piece, we could be sure that somewhere out there is a whole picture. If we treat the cosmological argument like a piece of a puzzle, we find that a transcendent creator exists. So there must be a full picture of a God somewhere out there, but we have no info about what the other puzzle pieces might look like, unless we had the box with a picture on it. Luckily though, we do have other puzzle pieces, so we're going to take a look at how they work. I'm going to move on here and use a different analogy to describe the cumulative case. The puzzle is good, but this is better. This is C-3PO. We're going to use him as a substitute for God in this explanation. I'm sorry R2, you know I love you, but you're not so well suited to this analogy. I'm sure I'll find some other use for you some other time. Just to be clear, C-3PO isn't a god. I know the Ewoks thought he was, but he's not, and I don't want anyone to have any misconceptions here that I'm saying C-3PO is a god, okay?
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
C-3PO is a droid. He lived a long time ago. A lot of people are curious about whether or not C-3PO ever existed. There are a lot of people that wonder if any droids ever existed. We have several surviving technical manuals that describe droids, but many people think that these are all elaborate fictions. No one has ever been able to recreate a droid, so a lot of people doubt that they're even possible. An archaeologist happens to dig up this pile of what looks like junk. No, not you, that's too confusing. He separates out the stuff to see what he has. The first thing he uncovers is this arm. Now this arm is a clear match for what the archaeologist understands about C-3PO. He's read lots of the manuals and knows all about all the sorts of droids that people claimed existed, but here in his hands is proof of a specific type of droid. This type of arm could only be found on protocol droids. C-3PO was known to be a protocol droid. So this arm on its own is proof that at least one protocol droid existed, which in turn makes it plausible that C-3PO existed. He shows the arm to a droid skeptic. The skeptic is also aware of the names of several droids. The archaeologist says, "Look, here's proof that a droid existed." The skeptic responds, "Yeah, which droid?" The archaeologist gets a bit annoyed. For a moment he thinks he should wave a few manuals about and shout, What droid is it? What do you mean what droid is it? I showed him this. I showed him a protocol droid's arm. And he says, what droid is it? It's not going to be an astromech, is it? It's not going to be an astromech. It's not going to be a gonk droid. It's not going to be whatever this is with the pointy thing and wheels. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be a floating ball. It's not going to be this, is it? It's not going to be this. But he collects himself and calmly explains, this arm belonged to a protocol droid. The evidence doesn't fit any of the other thousands we've heard about. So, having this arm is proof of a protocol droid, but it gives us no evidence for other types of droid, so we can leave them out of our investigation. The archaeologist rightly concludes from his finds that a certain type of droid existed, but he might be jumping ahead a bit if he said that conclusively meant C-3PO existed. The door is wide open for C-3PO, there are still a few other possible candidates for the arm's owner. The archaeologist rummages through his find again and reveals a second arm, a torso and two legs. Each piece on its own is proof of the existence of a protocol droid, but none of them tell us that it was C-3PO specifically. Reassembling the pieces into one makes the evidence even clearer. This set of objects definitely belonged to a protocol droid, but we're not any closer to proving C-3PO was the owner. So, the archaeologist goes back to his dig site and manages to find one other piece. He attaches the head and is pleased to discover that the head is the right model for C-3PO. He can rule out a few of the other protocol droids now, as he has some evidence that limits his options. Of the manuals he has available, he is left with the options of C-3PO, K-3PO and R-3PO. It seems like the main difference between the three is the outward appearance. The paintwork on his discovery is a bit faded, but he is able to safely say it closely matches the gold of C-3PO. It seems like with this complete set of evidence in place, no one should doubt that C-3PO existed. Now, with that established, I want to show how the pieces of C-3PO compare to the reasons to believe in God.
I'm not going to go too much into the arguments, that's for another time, another place, but I want to show how they fit together into this cumulative case.
We start with the arm. This arm could represent the cosmological argument. It shows us that the universe had a transcendent creator, so by itself it at least proves deism, but not Christianity. Just like it proves a protocol droid existed, but not C-3PO. Then we find the second arm. This arm might be the fine-tuning argument. This arm proves that an incredible intelligence designed the universe, so now we have a master craftsman and designer deity. It's not Christianity, but it fits the profile. Then we have a leg. We could say that this is an ontological argument. This takes simple facts of reality and shows that without God, a lot of things we know exist, like consciousness, love and logic, wouldn't have a leg to stand on. So now we have a transcendent creator and designer who is the source of our intelligence and emotion.
That doesn't sound anything like Zeus, does it?
This second leg could be things like answered prayers, miracles, near-death experiences and the like. I mean, quite a few droids have legs like this, so it's a big problem for skeptics who say there's no such thing as a droid. Any talk of supernatural entities can be propped up by this. The torso, where you would expect to find a heart, can be moral arguments. Without God there can be no objective morality, so if you have this objective morality, we can prove that God is the source. So now we have a transcendent creator and designer who is the source of our intelligence, emotions and sense of morality, as well as being the grounding standard for what is right and wrong. The head really whittled down our options a lot. It made the type of droid we were uncovering very specific. We could say that the head represents philosophical arguments like the ones from contingency that tell us that there must have been a single uncaused first cause. These will be the types of proofs that show that monotheism is true as opposed to polytheism. We were then left with three options. Christ 3PO, Kosher 3PO, Ramadan 3PO. The paintwork on the droid was the final proof of which one we had found. Just by what we know about what C-3PO was meant to be and looking at what we had, we could find that this was the droid that we had been looking for. C-3PO's gold plating was a match for the droid that was described in his technical manual, just like Jesus is a match for the God who we find described in the Old Testament. So, we have all these separate pieces that alone can prove specific things, even if they can't give us any information about other potentially relevant stuff. But when they are all put together, they form a perfect picture of God. Even if somehow a skeptic could prove that this specific leg didn't come from C-3PO, we would still have all this other stuff that would count for more than enough proof, and we could safely assume that the real leg was out there somewhere. So what we're saying here is that each individual piece of evidence here is proof of at least something that looks like the whole. All pieced together, we have everything we need, but each piece alone is enough to at least say we're in the right ballpark. So when we say, offer the atheists the Kalam cosmological argument, and they reply, okay, that gives you a deist God, but it doesn't prove Christianity, that's not a surprise. We know it only gets us that far, and we could do with a few more extra steps to take us the extra way.
But the thing is, if deism is true, then atheism is false. If we have a protocol droid's arm, then protocol droids existed.
And that's all these arguments do. They disprove atheism. They aren't intended to get you all the way to Christianity, but they do leave the door wide open for it. And as we've seen, the more pieces of evidence we find, the closer to Christianity we get. But Christians can actually do better than that. The cumulative case is great. It's great for showing that God is real. It's great for disproving atheism. It's very useful for bolstering our Christian faith. But there is an argument that on its own can completely carry the weight of our beliefs.
The archaeologist does a bit more digging. With this find, we have all of the information we need to see that we have the right droid. There are certain specific things in it that can only be found in the technical manual for C-3PO. This represents the historicity of Jesus and his resurrection. The facts we've gathered from history and archaeology can only be explained by the truth of the gospel. If that is the case, then Jesus really did raise from the dead and proved that he was God in the flesh. And we don't really need any other philosophical or metaphysical arguments to back it up. It stands on its own 2 feet and it's fully functional without any extra parts. We could lose some of this extra metal casing and it wouldn't matter to the best evidence we had for the droid. But we don't even have that problem. We have both a complete cumulative case that gives us all the individual bits and pieces that we need to prove the truth without doubt, plus we have a complete standalone proof that covers all the bases and takes the weight of the evidence by itself. So while we have all of this and it's readily available for anyone to see, it's really confusing why there are still skeptics out there insisting that droids never existed. And this is why skeptics have their work cut out for them if they don't want to believe in droids. First, they have to somehow show that each one of these evidences came from somewhere else, and the somewhere else can't be a different droid. And that seems impossible. But if that was successful, that would only show that we had no evidence in favour of the existence of droids. It wouldn't be any evidence against the existence of droids. They would then have to find some different evidence to support the claim that droids never existed. When we found C-3PO's arm, we got proof that a protocol droid existed. We got very good evidence that C-3PO existed. We opened the possibility that astromechs and mouse droids existed, but we can't draw any solid conclusions about them. What skeptics need is something that rules out all of them. But considering just how much stuff we have, i.e. a complete C-3PO with fully functional systems, the skeptics may as well be stuck between a fully operational shielded Death Star and a fleet of Star Destroyers without any Ewok allies raiding the shield bunker. You know, because the Ewoks love C-3PO.
I hope this surreal analogy helped clear up some confusion about the cumulative case. Probably didn't do anything to help people who don't know much about Star Wars, and perhaps even added to the confusion. Either way, I'd encourage you to go out and check out the individual cases for God's existence with the understanding that they aren't meant to get you all the way to Christ. Obviously today I just skimmed over what they are and their conclusions. I didn't go into any real detail on them. So don't get twisted up thinking that this is some kind of defence of them. But anyway, so that's it, and see you next time. Amen.